What's up, Professor Worgelis here? We just got done talking about JSON. We just got done writing our serialization and deserialization method. We imported an external jar file, which is a third-party library. This is a good way to earn bonus points. Look for libraries online. Use them. Don't reinvent the wheel. Once we added the library, we also added the imports that we needed. Okay, and now this code is ready to go. We actually need to use this code. Now, this will take some time. So if you need to deserialize and serialize your own objects, it's a little bit difficult because not only do we have to do a JSON object, we also have to put it back into our person object. So what I'll see some students do is they may not have their own person object. They may serialize it to JSON, deserialize it, and they may use the data directly. But the problem with that is you need a subclass and superclass. Okay, this is good to have your own object because it defines the type. If I don't define person, when I deserialize it, it may have first name, last name, age, gender, and who their father is, who their mother is, or what their profession is, what do they do for work. So it's actually good to define what a person is. That way, when you serialize it and deserialize it, it follows the same structure. If you don't create your own object, you're not doing the subclass superclass relationship, and you're not defining the types. So when we're dealing with web development and we're parsing JSON and sending JSON from client to server, it's good to define what that JSON should be. That way, when you get it, it's following the rules and you won't have any runtime errors. For example, if they don't pass in first name, let's say they just have name, which includes first and last name, it's not going to work. But we have it defined here, first and last name. So if it doesn't equal, we're not going to parse it. It's not following our format. And it's good to have a format. If you don't have your own format, then you're going to experience weird bugs while the application is running. So although I'll see some students just read in JSON directly and then output a JSON string directly, that may work to get a quick app up and running, but it is good to define the types. Now, persons defined, we have our serialization and deserialization methods. Let's go ahead and use it. If I open up the main, you'll see I passed the stage so I can show the open and save dialogues. And that's all going to happen in the controller. So when I go over to the controller, you'll see the ready method. I'll pass the stage. I still have the same combo box. I still have the same person object, which is created in the initialize method. You'll see I have an on close request. We'll come back to this here in a little bit. First, let's do the handle save. So if I scroll down to handle save, we're going to create validated person from form data. Notice how we're validating it. We don't want person to be in any format. It needs to follow our format. It needs to have a first name, last name, age, and gender. So let's look at the create validated person from form data. If I scroll down, it's going to create a person. It's going to get the text fields, and you'll see I'm setting the first name, setting the last name. I'm getting the age text and converting it to an int, and then I'll set the age, and I'll get the combo box, and I'll set the gender. Once I have that, I'll return person. Okay, I'll return person. So I have to have all of these, and I'll return person. So when I scroll up and go back to save, it's going to return a person, and I'm going to make sure that's not equal to null. If it's equal to null, there's no reason to continue. So I'm going to return. Once person is all set up, I'm going to have a file chooser. I'm going to show that on the stage. Once the user selects a file and once it's not null, I'm going to go ahead and serialize my object using JSON. So what am I going to do? I'm going to create a string. Okay, I'm going to call this my JSON string. And I'm going to call the method that we already created. So I'm going to use the person object. The person object has that method that we created, to JSON string, which basically takes this person and converts all of the fields to a JSON string using the simple JSON library. Now, once I have the string, it's really easy to write to a file. It's not in some encrypted message like the other example. It's actually just a string. So I can use a print writer for this. I'm going to call it out. I'm going to instantiate the print writer. And I'm going to use the file that the user selected. Okay, once I do that, I can just say out.print. I'm going to print the JSON string directly. And then make sure you always close the file. Okay, make sure you always close the file. Otherwise, you'll have a memory leak. If this doesn't work, for some reason I can't open the file, I can log that to the logger, but also make sure you display the message so the user knows what's going on. If I run this, you'll see the code here. So if I type in Nick across the board, select a gender, select an age, click save. Okay, this one is not going to be .ser because it's not a Java serialization file. This one's going to be person.json. Okay, JSON is a known extension for JSON files. So I'll do .json and save it. And I'm going to close the application. Now what's cool about this is JSON is human readable. So you saw the file before. If I open up the file before, look at this. This is the Java one. Okay, it's some weird encrypted string. We really don't understand the encoding. We can see a little bit of human readable text, but we really don't know what's going on here. If I open up the JSON file, person.json, open it up. Okay, you'll see it is human readable. Look how easy this is. You'll see I have the bracket just like I told you. The keys are in quotes. So I have first name followed by a colon. Then I have Nick, which is a string. Then I have a comma followed by the next key, which is last name. Keys are in quotes. Then I have a colon followed by the value. The value is Nick, and we know Nick is a string because it's also in quotes. Then I have a comma. Then I have gender. Gender is the key because it's in quotes. Then I have a colon, and you'll see I have the value, which is female. Then I have a comma. Then I have the next key value pair. This is a key because it's in quotes, also because it's before the colon. Then I have a colon and I have 45, which is not in quotes because it's an integer. You'll see the last key value pair does not have a comma. It's followed by a bracket. So I could store several objects here. Maybe each line is an object or each JSON object is an object. So if I had a bunch of people here, I can store them one by one, or I could even store them in a JSON array. This is a JSON object. If I have several JSON objects, then I form a JSON array. But this is human readable, and this is a common format used throughout the industry. JSON right now is one of the most popular formats to use. Okay, and you'll see why, because it's much easier to read and it can be used across multiple languages. It doesn't have to be used just by Java. So I've serialized the object. I've serialized it now using JSON, which is just a string. We need to deserialize it. We need to handle the open. We're going to do that in the next video. Stick with Professor Wergeles, and we'll see you in the next video.